Welcome to the Spiritual Underground Podcast. This is Dan once again, every time, Here coming to you from the studios at DTM Enterprises. It sounds real fancy and formal when I say that. Y'all see the pictures in the background of when we posted on spiritualunderground.org, where you can get a look at the people's faces and put the faces with a name. That always helps me to have that visual of what a person looks like. I don't know why I feel I need that. Mm-hmm. When I first started listening to speaker tapes, I was out looking for these people, and you can't find most of them because they actually protect their anonymity. There's a few people you can find their find pictures of. Also, Christopher Cohn's book, 12 Steps Spiritual Recovery, is available on Amazon. You've heard plenty of talk about that here. There's also a link to that on spiritualunderground.org. And the music you hear wrapped around these podcasts. Darren was in studio the other day and recorded a little bit of new stuff. So we have his music. Darren Frank has been writing and producing the music around the podcast. Jesse Simpson has also played a part in that. So we have another special, awesome guest today to going to share her story. Trying to get the balance. Fact of the matter is my home group where this kind of started was all men. I don't want this to be a men's deal. I want to balance the scales and have some different voices. So I'm really glad that you came to share your story with us today. How are you today?
I'm good.
Good. So pretty easy format here. I always usually ask people just to start with their... by the way, too, Robin is sitting in with us, too. I guess I can just be free with that, is that Robin is Krista's sponsor. So she's going to help us with the story along the line, too. So it's cool to have this trilogy of energy, just like the other day when Shane was in here, too. So you want to say hi?
Hi, everybody. I'm really excited to hear your story.
Yeah, it's cool. Krista has not told your story in front of anybody yet, so this is a really good way to do that, because I think it's a lot more comfortable atmosphere than looking at it 30, 40 people out.
Yes, definitely.
So we'll start out with your sobriety date, and we'll see where we go from there.
Okay. Well, my sobriety date is December 2nd of 2018.
Cool.
So it's fairly new, but it's certainly not my first sobriety date. I first started down this road on March 16th of 2018. So it's been about a year. But I'll start off with my childhood, I guess. So I was born back in 1976 in Alaska.
In Alaska?
Yes.
That is too cool. I didn't know that.
I was born up in Fairbanks, and try to think of how to start this. So my mom is originally from Illinois and had moved out to Alaska just like with a backpack.
Really?
Yeah.
Jeremiah Johnson style, just packed up and
exactly.
moved.
Heard
Wow.
there was like work on the pipeline that was being built at the time in the 70s.
Yeah.
And she met my birth father. And so I should let you know that I actually don't know my birth father. She, when I was still fairly young, she left him. And I don't really know a whole lot of the story. I do know that she left him because he was an addict. And she, once again, just kind of like filled a backpack, grabbed me, got a bus from Tok, Alaska, where they were living, and went to Fairbanks and just kind of disappeared from him.
Interesting.
Yeah. So once she got to Fairbanks, she got a job doing construction. She was like a water truck driver when they were building roads. And she met my dad. So I refer to the man that she ended up marrying and raised me as my dad. So
Okay.
I do have a birth father that I don't know, and then I have my dad who raised me, basically. So he was the foreman on a job, and my mom was a hot little 26-year-old woman wearing her short jean shorts, and he, I was an infant. And they met, and he ended up leaving his family and wife for her. And that's kind of how that happened. They ended up moving from Fairbanks down to, I think it was like Eagle River.
Yeah, I don't know
and then
my
out
Alaskan
to, yeah, I know. I'm telling a lot of stuff that a lot of people probably aren't going to know.
And people, there's a good
be.
chance there's some people that would know.
Yeah.
So yeah, keep it up.
We were there for a while, and then we ended up moving out to the valley, like Wasilla, Alaska, and people actually might know this one because that is the home of Sarah Palin.
Oh yeah.
So all of my memories come from living in Wasilla. I think I was like about 3, 4 or something along those lines around about the time that we moved out there. So it was, I don't want to say, I mean, I guess it was a good childhood, I guess. I don't know. My dad took care of us, and but he was an alcoholic. I know I've told Robin about that. He wasn't like the kind of alcoholic who would, get up in the morning and be wasted or anything like that.
Pretty functional. Then.
He was very, very functional. But when work let out, he would, obviously he would have drinks, and like quite a few drinks. But he would get up early the next morning and go to work, and but it was daily. He'd come back every day and have, I think at the time it was, or for a long time it was CLC and water. And I do remember being like 6 or 7. It was a weekend, and he was outside working on a car, and he instructed me. It was my job that day to make him drinks and bring them out to him so that he wouldn't have to take breaks from working on the car to come in and mix himself a drink.
Heck yeah, man.
It makes perfect sense.
Efficiency.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I remember my little neighbor friend had been over at the house, like hanging out, and so we're mixing his drinks, and she looks at me and is like, so I'm like, I don't even know how to make sure they're right, because it had to be, he's like, okay, well, you got to put this much whiskey in there, and then, this much ice, and then you got to put this much water in there. And so the Spring was her name, and she looks at me and she's like, well, we got to taste it.
Of course.
So we're taking little sips of this drink before we bring it out to my dad.
Like you all would know that it was mixed right.
I know, exactly.
Inherently, that's just something you're born with, the ability to taste if that whiskey and water is mixed correctly.
Exactly. Tasted like shit, but
Yeah.
Must be right.
That's great.
So let's see. So that was, it was just typical. No one even batted an eye. Oh gosh, another memorable story. I think it was about like 9 or 10. We were sitting around the dinner table, and my dad had, this time I remember it was vodka and water. He had switched his drink.
Awful.
Yeah. And so it was clear, and we were having dinner. I remember if we were drinking out of the same looking glasses. So we both were drinking. I was drinking water out of a tumbler, and he was drinking his vodka and water out of a tumbler. Well, I ran out of my drink. I drank all my water, and I looked at him, and I was thirsty, and I'm like, Dad, can I have a sip of your water? And he goes, yeah, you can. So I grabbed it, and I took like 3 giant gulps of this drink before the taste like hit me. And it was just awful. I remember I started just bawling, crying, because it burned. It was terrible. And my mom turns around and was so mad at my dad. Like she was just so pissed.
So how old were you about that time?
I think I was like 9 or 10. I remember we were still living, at the time we were living in a trailer. And I know that we had moved from the trailer to an actual house towards the end of 6th grade. So I was 10.
Okay.
So if we were still in the trailer, I remember it was right around that time. So I had to be like, I just turned 10 or I was still 9.
Yeah.
too young to be playing jokes like that on.
Yes.
And I remember my mom and dad argued over that. And that was another thing. I do remember there were a lot of arguments. My dad was really strict and very much like the ruler of the household or whatever. Everything he said goes. It really got worse once I got to be a teenager. I was going through normal rebellious phases, but I would really get, normal things. Like my friends would do or say things and that their parents were okay with, but my dad would lose his mind and yell at me, or I think I said that sucks.
Yeah.
Right.
And that was just the worst thing ever, apparently.
I remember getting in trouble for that too. My mom jerked a knot in my tail once for saying so.
Yeah. It's not a bad word. So I don't know. I'm trying to think of chronologically what's going on at that time in my life. Relatives, he had a brother who was a very bad alcoholic. He was a guy who actually had heart surgery, and when he came out of the surgery, they had to give him a beer. He was such a chronic, a bad alcoholic that they had to give him some alcohol so that he wouldn't
go into
withdrawal. Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He had a sister who was about like that as well. So a lot of the family picnics, there were really drunk people there. And let's see. So another incident that happened, I think I told Robin about it, is my dad, he was also he would also force me to give him hugs every night before we went to bed. Hugs that were uncomfortable, hugs where he held me entirely too long. I would try to push away from him and he would grab me.
Interesting.
And hold on to me. And he did that for a long time, and then it culminated, I think I was towards the end of 10, maybe being 11 or something like that, when he reached around and grabbed my breast. I mean, at that point, it I don't know, that was very uncomfortable.
I'll bet.
I still think about just how dirty that made me feel, and I definitely made me kind of be sexualized at a very young age.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Unnecessarily. So, and then his uncle kind of did something similar when I was around 12 or 13.
His uncle.
Yeah, my uncle, his brother.
His brother.
Yeah.
The one we were talking about a minute ago from that had the surgery.
No, well, he had so many brothers and sisters.
A bunch of them.
Yeah, it
Okay.
was so, I don't know. I know that they all had a really difficult childhood, and so I don't know what happened to them, but
Yeah.
clearly they were.
They were Alaskan natives. They were all.
Yes,
people who
everybody's
lived there.
Alaskan. Yeah.
And
Yeah. So those two were small incidents of me and my first drinking, and that's kind of the beginning. So the first time I actually voluntarily drank, I was 15. My best friend had stayed the night. One of my friends in the neighborhood, his parents were out of town and was having a party. Mm-hmm. So in the middle of the night, we snuck out of my room and walked to my friend's house and went over there. There really wasn't a whole lot of alcohol by the time we got there because it was kind of late. It was like pretty much drank. So I think I had maybe like 2 beers or something like that. But what ended up happening is my friend got caught. His parents found out. And
Later,
yeah, like later, like the next day.
yeah.
And his mom made him tell him who all was at the party. And of course, my name came up. So his mom calls my mom. And so my mom approaches me and asks me, well, were you at the party? And I'm like, yeah, I snuck out. I'm sorry. And she's like, well, did you drink? And I'm like, yeah, I drank, but it really wasn't that much. It wasn't that much, Mom. She's like, well, I do want to talk to you about drinking because, and this is when it came out that my birth father was an addict and alcoholic. And she's like, I just want you to be aware that alcoholism is definitely runs in your bloodline. She's like, your father was an alcoholic, and she's like, with you being part Alaskan Native, there's that as well. She's just being Native kind of makes you a little bit more susceptible to becoming an alcoholic anyway. So she's like, you really need to just be aware of that, and probably should avoid drinking.
Be careful.
Be careful.
Russian roulette.
Yeah. And I did. I was a pretty good kid. I mean, I was a swimmer from the time I started swimming when I was 5. I was competitive. Really in high school, that really took up all my time. So I really didn't have time to be going to parties. I mean, I was working out like before school. I was working out after school. So now that I kind of look back and think about it, maybe I started already having kind of an addictive personality.
Right.
As far as like being so intense with swimming and working out.
And the competition of it all too, right?
Oh, I love it. Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to this day, I love winning.
It's interesting that you as I sit here and listen to people's stories, and I don't know what, but sitting here, you see these common things amongst all of us that and that's one of them, that driven to maybe achieve and driven to do things a little harder than what would seem natural for a kid.
Yes,
and this to get that pat on the back too, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean,
the approval.
Right.
Yeah, like working so hard to like make zone cuts or like just be the best in the state in whatever event for my age group, or definitely I love the praise. I love the medals. I love the good jobs. That's really drives me for anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, that really those are the people I hung out with, were other swimmers or other athletes. And it wasn't my first like real good drunk wasn't until I was 17. I had graduated. I was about ready to head off to college. And me and 5 of my friends from high school took advantage of a weekend that my parents had gone out of town. And, oh, good Lord, we got so much alcohol. And it was one of those parties where we invited like just a few people, but it turned into just this crazy massive party. There's people from other schools showing up, and it got out of hand and insane. I remember I was doing like shots of vodka. I don't remember a whole lot from the party. I mean, I was drunk from the beginning. The only thing I do remember is one of my friends, actually the guy who had the party when I was 15, showed up to my party, and I walked out in the yard to go greet him and say hello, and I like fell flat on my face in the middle of my front yard, and that's about it. That's all I remember. Like, the rest of the night is gone.
Fun times, right?
Just fantastic, yeah. And so after that, it was a week later, I left for college, and that's...
Did your parents find out about the party?
Oh, yeah.
I was to say, I think there would probably have been some some residual effect from that.
Oh, yeah. And here's the thing, like, okay, there was some damage. Like, I don't know how there was like a burn mark on the carpet. We had Jell-O shots, and there was Jell-O thrown on the walls. I mean, it was the biggest mess in my house. Somehow I managed to clean all of this up. Like, I got the inside of the house back to normal. My parents did not know anything. How they found out, and I don't know how I missed this either. One of my friends drove across my lawn and put marks in the grass.
Yeah.
And so we're sitting upstairs.
Those are hard to clean up.
Yeah. So my dad is up on the second floor, and he's looking outside, and he's like, Krista, are those tire tracks? I'm like, yeah. He's like, why are there tire tracks on the yard? And I just came out. I came clean. I knew there was no hiding this. I'm like, I had a party. They're like, well, okay. I mean, I was leaving in less than a week for college. So
what could they do?
Yeah,
what could they do?
You were an adult. I mean, you were out of high school. You were getting really close to turning 18, I would have guessed. And
oh, yeah. So yeah.
Good on you for telling the truth, because I sure wouldn't have.
Well, there was no getting out of that one.
You've never been a really good liar, though, have you?
No. Oh, Lord, no. I've always, yeah. Even when I do try to lie, it's just so obvious. It's written all over my face. So, I just tell the truth.
Might as well.
It just works out better. So, yeah, I was off to college. And, boy, that was a shit show.
Where did you go to college?
University of Wyoming.
Wyoming.
Yes. Man. I swam there. It's a D1 school. I was a good swimmer. The first year, I didn't drink much my first year, and here's why. I got sick. I got mono. So I was actually kind of didn't do a whole lot. I was able to continue swimming. Like, they ended up not redshirting me, but that was about it. I had the energy to barely swim and barely make it to classes. So I didn't really do a whole lot of drinking. It was my sophomore year, when I was healthy, that I really started to throw down. I was going out basically every weekend, which also turned into an endless string of one night stands. That was a crazy year.
And you were still swimming, right?
Oh yeah. Swimming really well. Like, actually, that was probably my most impressive year. I don't know how I did it. It was
young. That's how you did it?
Yeah.
Yes,
youth.
So my junior year, I was still kind of partying. I mean, I was definitely, well, yeah. I mean, junior year, it just kept on going. But my swimming was starting to suffer. I definitely did not do as well as I did my sophomore year. And then by my senior year, there was an incident. Our entire team was caught drinking. And I guess the athletic director caught wind of this incident, and we were like sort of put on some sort of probation. And we were all told, okay, well, anybody who has drank at this party has a strike against them. If you drink again, you're off the team. So since I had a strike against me, I was one of the people that was drinking. I was not allowed to go to the next swim meet. And so instead of going and like cheering on my team, like supporting them, I ended up going and like going out to drink with this guy who was not my boyfriend. And we ended up just getting, just wasted. The next morning, I woke up and I was like, oh crap, I have to get to practice. So I'm like running out of his place, going to the pool, hitting practice, hungover. We were doing dry lands. So there was a lot of like sit-ups and push-ups and all those sorts of things. And I'm just still basically drunk. And my coach let me do this hour-long, excruciating practice, dry land. And at the end, he looks at me and is like, Krista, were you drinking last night? And I'm like, once again, I can't lie.
Mm-hmm.
I knew it was I probably reeked of it. I knew it had to be coming out my pores. And I told him the truth. I was like, yeah, I was. So immediately he said, well, you're off the team.
And that was your junior year, is that right?
That was my senior year.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually did make it through my junior year. So that was senior year. It was in the fall. It was really early in the season, actually. And as a result of me getting kicked off, my coach ended up losing his job.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. It was me. There was another guy who ended up getting kicked off around the same time. He was
just like for not having control of his team, kind of thing.
Yeah, I believe so. I wasn't aware that his job was on the line, but really, in all honesty, even if I had known, I'm not sure that it would have made a difference.
Powerlessness right there.
Yeah, I was so out of control at that point. That probably wouldn't have mattered. So after that, you'd think I would have learned a lesson, but I didn't. I just kept going. By the grace of God, somehow I managed to graduate. It took me 5 years, but I did end up walking away with a degree.
You weren't on a swimming scholarship.
I was.
You were.
Yeah, I lost that.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
Yep. Yeah, so my mom said, well, I guess you're going to have to take out a student loan. And so we did, got me through the last, I think it was a year and a half it took me after that to end up graduating. I was on the 5-year plan.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So after that, I left. I went and lived in Seattle for a minute. Met up with a couple of girls that I had known from college. Moved in with them. It was the same thing. I got a job at a restaurant. I was a waitress at a Red Robin, and so I don't know if you guys have ever worked in the restaurant industry.
Nope, not me.
I have.
Have you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That really, people really party.
Yeah, you can up your game there.
I've heard that.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So, you show up to work, 4:00. You get off work around 2 a.m. or so. What do you do with your tips? You got cash. Head out and drink or, whatever. So I did that, but I was also trying to get a job with the airlines, which I did. I ended up getting on with American Airlines. Has anybody been a flight attendant before?
No.
Oh, yeah. Once again, this is with my people. with other young people who are, you know, we're going to these fun destinations. One rule the airlines had, you know, they were always like, you need to stop drinking. You need to give yourself 12 hours. But I tell you what, I never followed that rule.
It's hard to do.
Yeah. And I kept partying. I met my first husband. He was a flight attendant as well. He was fun. He was a lot of fun. I met him at a bar like right before Christmas in New York. And he liked to drink like I like to drink. And New York was so many bars and just so many opportunities to like go out and party. He actually is the one who kind of took me from just drinking to starting to do drugs.
Yeah.
He was really into like the Grateful Dead and following Fish and like all the kind of hippie bands or whatever. So we started, you know, going to Fish shows and so much fun. I mean, that's where we would go. It's like a smorgasbord of drugs. I mean, we would get like mushrooms, ecstasy started being my thing. Like I absolutely, every time we would go out, that's kind of what I started wanting to get. Cocaine's a good one too. I love cocaine. But I mean, at the time I felt like I was having fun.
Yep, I remember. It was a lot of fun for a while.
It was.
It wasn't.
Yeah, exactly. Until I found myself pregnant with our daughter. So obviously, once I got pregnant, then I had to. I was good. I didn't really have too much of a problem giving everything up.
Reel it in.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But it was pretty tough to deal with my ex-husband, my first husband, I guess I should say. 'Cause he was still well into the drinking and the drugging.
He wasn't pregnant.
I was going to say
he was not pregnant. Right? Yeah. So it was really tough dealing with him. I had gone back to Alaska to visit my parents while I was pregnant to kind of like get a break from him in New York. And it kind of gave him a bit of an ultimatum. Like I can stay here in Alaska, but he didn't want that. He wanted to be involved and be a father. So we ended up moving out of New York. Kind of felt like getting away from the people that we knew there might help. So we ended up moving to Dallas.
Been all over the place, haven't you?
Yeah, mm-hmm. I have actually.
Mm-hmm. How'd your mom and dad take the news of you being pregnant?
They just took it.
You were married, right? Or no? Mm-mm. No, not yet.
No.
Because when you introduced, you said to be my husband or whatever. I didn't know.
Yeah, no. No, we weren't. We did not get married. I think we'd only been together.
Maybe I might have heard things. Maybe I heard that.
Oh, well, he is my ex-husband, so eventually we did get married. Okay, yeah. All right.
I thought I heard that someplace.
Yeah.
Timeline thing.
Yeah, it is. Sorry.
No big deal. Not a problem.
So yeah, I think I'd only been with him like 6 months before I did get pregnant, and barely knew him. Just he was a fun guy to party with, really.
Yeah.
It happens.
So back to that. That's why I was understand. So when you went home, or you told your parents you were pregnant.
Yeah.
It was a boyfriend at that point in time.
Yes, exactly. And one they didn't like. Had
they met him?
They had once. And my mom didn't even really give her opinion. I just think she probably thought I was going to be done with him like in no time.
Yeah.
And I should have been, really, but did not turn out that way. Was not to be. So we went to Dallas. He continued to drink a lot. He would, I remember I'd get so pissed. Like he would get so drunk and then like go pee in a closet or something in the middle of the night. It was just, he was clearly going in that direction.
It's a Scott Lee thing. It makes me laugh because he talks about peeing in the closet. He doesn't raise your hand and this kind of thing. He says, "Has anybody peed in the closet?" He goes, "Man, I wish that." He said, "Oh, I never got that bad." And I can visualize that a lot of people raise their hands,
Right.
And,
Oh yeah. Yeah, he would pee in a lot of places actually. Like I remember one time he turned around and like
that a funny
started
thing?
peeing on the bed. I was like, "Oh, what are you doing?"
that's a funny thing. It's something else that I hear here a lot. That I guess one of the symptoms of alcoholism is peeing in strange places.
I think so. Oh yeah. Most certainly.
I never was that.
I did it.
I had a buddy that would talk about that. He just couldn't, like, he would sleep. He would pee the bed all the time.
Yeah.
Just all the time. And he said we'd go places, he'd spend the night with people, and it's so embarrassing that, that he just could not pee the bed.
I know. Well, that's kind of like, I got to a point where I was like that too. Not that in the early stages, but
Yeah, a progression.
yeah, progression. So I had Haley in 2001, so March of 2001. And shortly after that, we decided that there's no way that we could continue living in Dallas and trying to take care of her ourselves. So he decided I really wanted to move closer to my family. He wanted to move closer to Louisville. And I'm like a non-confrontational type of a person. So, of course, he won that. We ended up moving to Louisville. And his parents and family and everyone did help us out with Haley quite a bit. But it was a blessing, and it was also a curse, because that kind of opened a door to, okay, well, his sister's going to take Haley for the weekend, so that gives us a chance to party.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, I was so good. I was not drinking. I was not doing drugs. I was not smoking or anything that whole time I was pregnant. And then as soon as we got to Louisville, it just started again. And we moved here in May of 2001, and then we got married in July of 2001. And we continued to go anytime there was a Fish concert, of course we'd go. If there was a music festival, we'd go. It was, once again, the smorgasbord of whatever we wanted, drug-wise, dropping acid, whatever. And then that kind of progressed to just even weekends. Like, we would go out on weekends, and then I'm like, all right, we need to find some cocaine. And we were married for 5 years before, and I wasn't happy. I felt guilty a lot for doing that. Like, I knew it was wrong, but at the same time, like, I couldn't stop myself. I couldn't say, you know what, Mike, I think we need to stay home this weekend and take care of Haley. But that really wasn't an option for him. And I certainly didn't want to do it by myself. So I would definitely just be passive in that and just let him contact his parents or contact his sister to watch Haley, and then continue to go out like every single weekend. So as you know, or I don't know, Dan, if you know, but you know, that two addicts in a relationship don't last too terribly long.
Right.
That's my experience.
It gets, like, we would have really terrible, like, arguments, where we're both wasted. And we'd get in such terrible arguments. I mean, like one time I thought he was going to choke me. It was just, we got to a point where like we get into an argument and then I'd be like scared and calling his parents to come pick him up because he was out of his mind. Or I remember one time we went camping and he got so angry and was like, just, it was really scary. So when he kind of passed out, I went into the car and like locked myself in the car. So after a while, I mean, I definitely knew that I wasn't going to spend the rest of my life with this guy. This was definitely not the love of my life. I just married him because I had a child with him. But at the same time, I was too afraid to leave. I was in this place.
Louisville, way
far
from your
so far
family,
away
right?
from my family. I felt so isolated. I didn't really have any of my own friends.
Making those kind of changes is tough, you know, to
Yeah.
just up and decide I'm going to bail on this or looking for the escape hatch was, you know, and it just probably didn't seem to be available.
It wasn't available. I didn't, I wasn't like making a ton of money on my own or anything like that. So I was like, well, I guess I'm stuck. I'm going to stay here. But as fate would have it, he went to a music festival on his own. I didn't go with him. And after the long weekend, he had come back and announced that he had met his soulmate.
Nice.
That he didn't think that we should be together anymore. He's like, do you really love me, Krista? And I'm like, not really, you know. Like, but we do have this obligation to our daughter, and obviously I was scared. I didn't want to be alone.
Yeah.
But you know, he had decided that he just didn't want to be with me anymore. He thought that he had found his soulmate, and he thought that he deserved to be happy. And that did not include me. So, I felt the same way. So I just went with it, ended up getting a divorce. And, that was the first time that I kind of like just drank out of, kind of not knowing what else to do. So I was doing a lot of like sitting at home, and just, like drinking a bottle of vodka or, until I passed out. And I realized,
like a 5-year-old.
Yeah, she was 5. I remember, oh gosh, not my proudest moments.
Yeah, I understand. I've done that too.
Yeah. So yeah, I remember like one time, or I did this multiple times. I would wait until she was asleep. And if I ran out of booze, I would walk up to the corner store, which, you know, round trip was probably a 30-minute walk. And I would just leave her alone and walk up there and walk back. A couple of times I think I drove. I mean, can you guys imagine if I had gotten pulled over?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or wreck or any of them
Anything.
things. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's my 5-year-old at home by herself.
Yep.
I
did it too.
Yeah.
I left this very house that we're sitting at to go to Louisville on Sunday night because you couldn't buy it here.
Oh, good. Oh, yeah. Yeah,
So
you
to
couldn't.
go all the way to Louisville and back.
So, yeah, not my proudest
Awful.
moments.
Yeah.
But
what that disease will do to you.
I know. But I ended up meeting my second husband. And in the early stages, I was really hiding the fact that I was drinking so much.
Heck yeah.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, and I did a pretty good job. Obviously, you know, he fell in love with me and decided that he wanted to marry me, asked me to marry him. It wasn't too terribly long after I had gotten divorced from my first husband that I kind of fell into that. And he's not exactly a big drinker. I mean, like, he would go out on weekends, like one night but he wasn't like a blackout guy. He didn't drink like I drank. And he really snubbed his nose if I would like bring a bottle of wine home and try to drink during the week. He'd be like, "What are you doing? It's Tuesday."
Of course it is.
Tuesday.
So there was a long period of time while we were married that he kind of kept me under control. And, we would go out on weekends sometimes, and I would do my thing and get like blackout drunk and act like an idiot and say terrible things to people. The next day he would kind of be like, "Do you even realize what you did and who you owe an apology to?" And I'd be like, "No." And
it's a terrible feeling.
It is, yeah. And then he'd proceed to tell me, and I'd feel ashamed.
Yeah, I hated when other people told me what I did last night.
Lord.
I avoided that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the worst feeling.
Most of the time they figured I knew, I think. They gave that, like, you were funny last night or last week,
Yeah, it was a great time, wasn't it?
Won't you tell me what I did?
Yeah.
I'm thinking, what?
I never copped to it. Did you?
Oh.
You just told him that you didn't remember?
Yeah, I would just tell him I didn't. I'd be like,
Yeah.
"No, I don't know. I don't know what I did."
Yeah, that's what, yeah. It's tough shoes to be standing in, for sure.
So, and I'd say towards the end of our marriage, he would kind of be like I was just getting too much for him. And I would say, like, I think I have a problem. Like I think maybe I need to go to AA or go get treatment. And he'd be like, "No, you don't. I don't think you have a problem. I don't think you're an alcoholic. I think you have a problem with alcohol." Like, it's the same thing, right? But he's like, I don't want you to quit. I just want you to
Moderate. Just, can you not control that a little bit? Have some control, girl. Come on.
Exactly. He'd be like, "Just, you never eat dinner. Eat dinner."
That's probably the problem. You were drinking on empty stomach.
Exactly. Or he'd be like, "You were drinking like vodka last night. Why don't you just drink beer?" I know. It's.
Yep, I get it.
Yeah.
And he wanted to have a little control over you too at that point, didn't he?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He was a bit of a control freak. He actually, kind of to circle back, he was a lot like my dad. Very strict. I always kind of felt like I was walking on eggshells around him. I felt like I always had to get permission to hang out with friends, permission to see my mom, permission to have my mom come visit us. I mean, it was always kind of like I would ask him, and then he'd kind of throw a fit about it, and then, like, I'd have to negotiate. I don't know.
Yeah, you had to negotiate and manipulate and make sure you were 2 steps ahead of him so you can get what you want.
Exactly. Yeah, I always did
complicated.
something that I felt like I coined planting the seed, where you, like, plant the seed, where you kind of suggest something, then walk away from it, and then you kind of
ease them into
it, and then eventually they're like, "Oh, well, how about we do this?"
And suddenly it's their idea.
Yeah, suddenly you kind of make it seem like their idea. Then
Funny.
But I've discovered if I just came out and was like, "Let's do this," it was a big argument. And so yeah,
and that was the same dynamics that you had with your dad.
Exactly the same dynamic that my mom had with my dad.
Okay.
Because the term plant the seed and how to do that was a discussion I had with my mom.
When you were trying to get your dad to do something.
Yes.
You said, first of all, you got to plant the seeds.
First of all, we have to plant the seeds. You have to suggest. I mean, I was like taught.
Wow.
So basically, yeah, when I met Bill, there was a lot of warning signs that he was a lot like my dad. I just didn't want to look at him. After being torn down by my first husband for so long, and then all of a sudden Bill, my second husband, is just like, "Oh, you're so beautiful and you're perfect and blah, blah, blah." Like, well, shit, I gotta marry him.
Exactly. He likes me.
He thinks I'm pretty. So, gosh. Oh, so to kind of go back to my first husband, the reason that I started feeling like maybe I need to go into treatment, at that point, he was in recovery. He's actually, at this point, I think in June, he's going to have 8 years sobriety. Yeah. So he got into NA. He's an alcoholic, but I think towards the end, his bottom was because of painkillers, like opiates.
Yeah. That's what brought me down.
Really? Yeah, that was his end game, and he really relates to people in NA. But he started kind of planting the seed in my ear,
Right.
kind of telling me like, Krista, this is such a better way to live, and it just keeps getting better, and
And you all were separated at this time when he got into recovery. You all were.
Oh
already
yeah,
divorced.
I was. We were divorced. I was already married to Bill.
Oh, okay.
But he could still recognize, me being
Sure.
an alcoholic. And I would, I'd kind of like joke or whatever. I'd like I'm not. After I'd get a phone with Mike, I'd be like, I'm not like him. He was terrible. He was out of control. I'm like, I'm nowhere near like he was or is, And I really believed that. I thought Mike was way worse off than me, but.
Yep, that's another one of those
Denial,
common those bell ringers, I guess you might say,
Yeah.
where you said another one a minute ago too about the deal about like going after guys that were just like your dad.
Yeah.
That's another bell ringer. You go ding, 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 winner, winner, chicken dinner, and yeah, the ego, or what some people would say, it just says I'm not. That's that other that I'm on this trip with this lies we tell ourselves that that I'm not as bad as him, and and another one I'll say if I ever get as bad as him or her or them or whatever, well then I'll do something. But at the moment I'm not that bad. I got a handle on this thing. Right now.
I was like, I'm not doing opiates. I'm not shooting heroin or anything like that. I'm okay.
Yeah.
I got
probably,
this.
I mean, had you laid off at the other stuff too?
I did.
Like, so you laid
Actually,
down.
oh yeah. Once I met Bill, he was so against like even smoking weed.
So that's another thing we can tell So I'm not doing that stuff anymore.
Yeah.
I'm just drinking.
Yeah. Unless I would like go to Chicago by myself,
Right.
and then all of a
Right,
sudden
yeah.
I'm like in a
Except for when
bathroom.
nobody was looking.
Yeah, like snorting coke off the back of a toilet.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's normal. People do
Yeah,
that.
people do
Social-
that.
It's
socially
actually-
easy.
Exactly.
Yeah. Shoot, I knew a guy that carried around the back of a toilet. Just the lid.
Just for that.
like a mirror. I'm not
Yeah,
joking.
people, we are out in the country. And
Some people had mirrors. This guy had the tank lid off the toilet.
It's porcelain.
Yeah.
So, and here's another thing. Like Haley, my daughter, hated Bill from the beginning. That's something I really regret, is not taking her feelings into consideration when I decided to get married. Because that ended up, that was a struggle from the very beginning. And ultimately, obviously, my addiction had a little bit to do with him deciding he didn't want to be married anymore. But it was so turbulent between him and my daughter that he couldn't take it anymore. She was starting to like smoke pot and sneak out, and he had much younger kids who looked up to her, and he was like, I can't have my kids be exposed to this. Like, they look up to her. And so we ended up getting divorced, and that's when I really accelerated.
mm-hmm. Turned it up a little bit.
Turned it back up, and definitely was not a social drinker. I would go out to eat with people, but I made sure that, like Robin said, she would pregame. I definitely pre-gamed. I would have like a half a bottle of wine at least before I met my friends out, so that when I went out, I wasn't like guzzling.
Yeah,
Right.
you could kind of like moderate through that little period.
Yeah.
Until you couldn't anymore, and it's time to go.
Yeah, then it was
'Cause I
time
got
to
ramp this
go.
thing back up soon.
Stop at the liquor store, get another bottle of wine, and like go home, and just get shitty. And so like I was definitely just numbing my emotions after the divorce. Like that one was really hard.
Yeah. Yep. Divorce got me. That's
Yeah.
another one of I can relate to that because it just helped accelerate my disease progressed quickly once the divorce
Oh yeah,
happened.
it
Game on. Right?
exactly. I mean, we've been divorced now for a while. I guess it's been over 3 years, but yeah, in that time it went from me being like a blackout drinker on the weekends to just being like a daily drinker, and not just a few bottles, like a few glasses of wine every night. I mean, I am like passing out every night,
Right.
Yep.
getting up the next morning.
I'd like to tell you I was going to sleep. In reality, that was not what
that was
going
not
on with
happening.
me.
No, I was like going to bed, peeing my bed, waking up wet, hung over, and then fortunately I work from home, so I'm like barely just doing the minimum amount of work I can.
Yeah, just limping along.
Yeah, until 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock when I would like crack my first beer, and I work until 5:30, so obviously I'm drinking while I'm working.
Yeah, towards the end of the day and whenever.
Yeah. So that went on for a while. Like I said, I was keeping it pretty hidden from my friends. I would drink with them, but I knew how much to drink in front of them, and
You just have to be really selective of who you go out with when
Yeah.
you know you're going to put one on for sure.
oh, exactly. There were people that I didn't, that I could go out with and just get really shit-faced, and those are people I don't talk to anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Got a lot of those.
Yeah.
I can remember times when we would go out to eat. Usually when I was still married, and we'd go out to eat with her family, they would always pick places that didn't serve alcohol, and I could not make any sense of that. I mean, because that was that moderation where I pre-game, and then you got to bridge that gap.
Ugh, yeah.
And yeah, that was rough. Because other times I could like run through the bar, and had to pee, be back in a minute and shoot through the bar and get a shot of tequila or a shot of whiskey or something, to keep to ramp that, to keep going. But
Right.
man, when they picked those damn places that didn't serve alcohol, it's like you had to go out to the car or something. I always had it with me. I always had beer, had something to drink with me. I just was never. I never
Too
was
far away
dry.
from it.
Yeah, because that was not going to happen.
Yeah, I just stayed home. So I really, really started to isolate myself. At one point I got really sick.
And you have a daughter living with you at this point in time?
Yes, yeah. Not full time. Now, when I went through this little period where I got sick. I caught some kind of virus, I guess. That's all they can really figure. It's I got some kind of virus where it affected my joints. It kind of was slow at first. Like at first it was like I would turn my neck and I couldn't turn my neck. I thought maybe I had like bad pillows or something. So I started trying out new pillows, and every morning I'd wake up and I'd be like, oh boy, I'm so stiff. And then my knees started swelling. My elbows started swelling. And then all of a sudden, I got on an airplane to go visit my mom in Hawaii, and I got off the airplane and my knees were and my ankles were so swollen that I could barely walk.
From a flight.
Yeah, from a flight. And ended up like going to the hospital while I was there, and they ran a bunch of tests, and they really never discovered what it was. They think I got a virus. And here's the question. They were like, well, why would a healthy adult pick up this weird virus, and in the back of my mind, I'm like, I know why. It's because I've been drinking so much. My immune system sucks.
Right.
But of course I couldn't tell the doctors, I couldn't, even my mom was like kind of suspicious. My mom was like asking the doctors, well, could it be caused from drinking? Should she stop drinking? And the doctors were like, no, drinking shouldn't hurt. But, obviously no one knew that I was drinking to the excess.
At the level that you were.
Yeah. But that eventually went away. And even that didn't stop me from drinking. But that is about the time that Haley started living with me full time because I needed help like getting up and downstairs. I needed help getting out of bed practically. And actually, when we got home from that vacation, I continued to drink even more. It was kind of like masking the pain. So now I'm trying to mask my physical pain and my emotional pain and just ramping it up.
Were you on painkillers too then?
No. They did give me muscle relaxers, so that was fun. Mm-hmm. That's about the time that they kind of quit prescribing people. Like the opioid epidemic was getting really bad. So,
I see.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Which, thank goodness.
Definitely.
Yeah. When do you think that was about?
What's that?
When about?
That was about 2 years ago that I went through that little weird period.
Yeah. Yeah. They clamped down well by then.
Yeah.
I can attest to that.
So, we'll get back to we'll kind of fast forward to my absolute lowest point, was in about a year ago. Haley has been living with me full time. She had really kind of taken advantage of the fact that I, was an alcoholic. I mean, just a terrible alcoholic. She could sneak out whenever she wanted. She could take the car whenever she wanted. So why on earth would she go back to her dad's where she can't get away with anything and there's rules? She would steal from me. She would take my credit cards. So I was very easily taken advantage of at that point. And I knew it, but at the same point, I couldn't. I wanted to quit drinking. I wanted to get control. I wanted to just get control of my life, basically, so that I couldn't be taken advantage of anymore. But I couldn't. I would try to even just say I want to quit drinking for one day. Yeah. And I couldn't make it.
Couldn't even get a day.
I couldn't even get a day in. I mean, I was getting to the point where I was on weekends when I didn't have to work, I would wake up just so hungover on Saturday morning, and there would be just a little bit of wine left in the box, and so I would just go ahead and pour myself a glass and start to get nauseous and sick, and I would go and I would throw up in the sink, and meanwhile washing down the bile with wine and just repeating until I could finally hold down the wine.
Man, I've heard that story a number of times too.
And
I didn't get to experience that.
Yeah. And then once I held down, once I could function, get in the shower, make myself look presentable, then I would be off to the liquor store to get enough to last me through the day, and into the next day, because I would do it again on Sunday. And that went on for, I'd say probably 3 months until it was a Wednesday. I remember it was a Wednesday. And I'm completely shit-faced. Haley walks in, says something smart-ass to me, and I lost it. She had just pushed me so far with her shenanigans and taking advantage of me, that I was screaming. I took her Apple phone and threw it on the floor and broke it, and kicked her out of the house. And she got an Uber and got in it, and took off. No idea where she went. And obviously I broke her phone, so I had no way of getting a hold of her. So the next morning, I wake up and I'm like, oh my goodness. And her dad's calling me.
Who's in recovery now.
Who is in recovery and has been telling me that I need to get help for quite some time. And I had to fess up. I was like, he asked me where Haley was, and he didn't even know. He didn't know about this incident the night before. And I felt like I had to tell him and just fess up and be like, I'm out of control. And he's like, Krista, you know where to go, blah, 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 blah.
Was that kind of a relief at that point?
Yeah, It kind of was, to finally just be like, that was not having to hide it from him anymore, which I wasn't hiding anything. He knew.
Yeah, but that's part of that step one thing of being able to start admitting this thing. When you let somebody else, like, saying I'm hitting the bottom, I'm done. However those words come out, whether if they come out in the phrase of "help me," I don't know what to do. I've heard that over and over too. That there's a relief that comes with that admittance.
Yeah.
That I can't do it anymore.
So after I got off the phone with him, the next person I called was my best friend, Shannon, who was completely unaware of what was going on. Like, I couldn't tell her because I work with her. Not only is she my best friend, but she got me the job that I'm currently at. Obviously, I couldn't be like, hey, I'm drinking on the job.
She's in a boss role.
She is. Yeah, she's like my team leader. So right. I called her and I didn't tell her what happened, but I was like, I am not feeling good. I'm not going to be getting on my computer today and working. And she automatically knew something was up. I don't know why or anything. And she asked, were you drinking last night? And I'm like, yeah. She goes, well, take the day off. But she's like, I think you need to come out and come to my house. And she's like, get in your shower, just take a shower, come out to my house. I'm like, no, I really want to be alone today. I mean, I was really at my bottom. I actually did go sit in the shower, and I had a razor blade, and I was really contemplating, like, ending it, just bleeding out in the shower. So sick of myself.
Yeah.
The jumping off point.
Yeah. Fortunately, Shannon just kept on texting and calling and kind of insisting that I come out to her house. And
she's working from home also.
Yeah. And she's like, don't worry, I'll just do the minimum, and we'll hang out. I mean, she just knew that something was really up with me. So fortunately I did.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. So yeah, I went out there, went to her place. She's out in Elizabethtown. She took me on a hike. She was like, this is the most therapeutic thing you can do. I mean, I was so hungover.
Yeah, like, hey,
that was the last thing I wanted to do, but it was the absolute best thing to do. Kind of got me out of my head. And that's when I talked to Mike again, my ex-husband who's in recovery. Oh, thank you.
My kind of Kleenexes.
Ooh, nice. And
probably should get some real ones.
Yeah. No, these work fine.
Yeah.
So anyway, Mike called and checked back in on me, and he said that he wanted me to come to an AA meeting, and that he was going to take me. I mean, he was like very adamant that I needed to do it, and he did. Actually, no. So that night was a Thursday, because the very first meeting that I ever went to was 6:30 on Friday evening at Token Club.
Is that when you went there with Laura?
No. Mike took me.
Okay.
So it was awkward. I mean, it was like, here I am sitting with my ex-husband, and
I'm a mess.
I'm a complete disaster. Yeah. And, but it was good. I mean, it was like, the meeting was perfect. I think Mike was worried that somebody was going to maybe, because he was like, oh, that person shared something that I don't agree with. He's like, but don't worry, Krista.
Yeah. Doing all the
He's like, keep coming back. You'll. So I think maybe he was worried I'd be turned off by something, but really, I mean, everything was great. I remember that meeting just being absolutely perfect. And, I got my silver tip. Aww. And everybody was clapping and I'm like, oh, yay.
Yeah, hey, I like this. I remember
I'm
this.
like all over this. And I had that first time I had a pretty good run. I think I had about like, actually I got about 2 weeks before I met Laura.
Okay.
And I went out and drank with her. Got back on it April 1st, and then I had a run of about 90 days. So my big mistake that first time was I started, I kind of started doing the steps, but not really. I wasn't really taking them too seriously. And I started dating Travis, who is a non-drinker, and I thought like I was safe with him because obviously I wouldn't drink. And then I quit going to meetings after like the first 30 days or so.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I would go, like I got my 30-day chip. Yay, claps. And then I wouldn't go except maybe once a week. And then I go and get my 60-day chip. And then, I got my 90-day chip. And then there's that big lull. And I wasn't going to meetings. And then I ended up breaking up with Travis. So there also wasn't him to kind of moderate.
Buffer you a
yeah.
little bit.
And the thought of having to wait until 6 months to get my next chip it just overtook me. I couldn't imagine. Like 3 months seemed so long. And I couldn't get it in my head like it's one day at a time. So I went back out and drank again. Now, when I came back in around September, I think is when I met you.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I came back in around September. Now, I did have a little hiccup there around Thanksgiving.
Yes. Mm-hmm. But we started hanging out in September and started going to meetings every day. And,
yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then I really, I had I kind of had a sponsor. Like, once again, it was just somebody I didn't really connect with. But I wasn't working the steps at all. And finally, after I drank that last time, that's when I asked Robin to be my sponsor. They say pick somebody that, what is it, you admire or look up to and has what you want. And that's definitely Robin.
Oh, how sweet.
So we've been working the steps and I've been going to meetings. And I do my best to call her every day. Now, I don't do great.
You do pretty good. I think you do really well, actually.
And I definitely call you whenever I need advice. Like, most of the time, if somebody makes me angry or like upsets me, I just kind of want to like snap and say nasty things. But I've kind of lately stopped myself and like called Robin and been like, so here's what's going on.
Pause.
Yes.
Pause. Let some of that pressure out.
Yeah. And then, so that has actually, that's, it helps. It's amazing.
Yeah, we do. I found, and I have a similar thing, where I bobbled around. I think most people do. It's really unusual for people to come in here and just get it right.
Yeah.
We have to stumble around a while, but there's a specific recipe that works. There's also a specific recipe that works the other way. Those other, I'm going to write them someday maybe. We do say them in the meetings and stuff, though, and it's the same thing. You say, I stopped going to meetings. I wasn't working stuff. The way to get sober is to engage in this thing, participate in your recovery, start working these steps, get a sponsor, call them, use them, and all that stuff of practicing doing that. I'm sure, I don't know, I remember like being and it's like was a revelation to that I had something to do to help myself rather than to do what I normally did. I had this tool called Call My Sponsor.
Right.
Yes.
And it was such a, it's a big tool, right?
It's so easy,
yeah,
right?
And it is, but it wasn't for a while, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't, and that's the other thing about the practicing it, but it gets easier, right? It gets easier and easier because now I can call a sponsor over little bitty stuff now, it doesn't make any, I'm no longer hanging up. I used to want to weigh it. Is this worth the phone call or not? Let's see,
It's just a phone call, but boy, that phone can weigh a lot sometimes.
It can at times. So you say December 2nd, is that what you said? I always try to remember people's sobriety dates. There's a couple of different things I try to do as I participate on my own in my recovery. Is one of the things is I learn your name, which that's not a problem here. And I like to know people's sobriety dates. I have a lot of sobriety dates in my noggin and in my phone. So that makes someplace, a little over 90 days now?
It's like over 100.
100, yeah.
Yeah, because remember I told you, Shannon, maybe
Right.
the wooden 100-day chip.
Thing, yeah. You can't have enough of those chips, really.
No.
I started, and don't have it, but I have actually started carrying a real fancy 24-hour coin in my pocket a lot. Because that's really all. That's back to that simple thing. That's really all we ever got, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I can tote around that 4-year token I got in January, but whoop-de-doo. I got those 4 years one day at a time. It's that day-by-day thing is what got me. So I started carrying a 24-hour token again.
Oh, yeah.
Recently.
Even though March 16th isn't my actual sobriety date, I have had the hiccups. I really do kind of feel like that's
when the journey started.
That's when the journey started.
Yeah.
I'm actually really proud of that date because
You really turned it around at that point.
Absolutely.
It takes some time to get some traction,
Yeah.
It just does. And I have heard of the guy, in particular, I remember a guy that said he's a one-chip wonder. He got one silver chip and he stayed sober.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. I was thinking the other direction there.
Yeah, no, this was a good thing where he got one silver chip. He came in, got a 24-hour chip, and stayed sober from there. Never got another one. I just not long ago, I have a whole little bag of them, and I noticed that I had a whole lot of 60-day chips from over the years. Because there was about 4 years that I bobbled along before I came into AA in 2011. My sobriety date's in 2015.
Okay.
I had 4 years of bobbling around, and I actually got a 1-year token. I can tell the truth today and say that wasn't real. I didn't drink for that year, but I was still toying around with other stuff. I was still taking some pills and smoking some pot and doing some things, and telling everybody, and I knew, it wasn't like I didn't know, but I told myself that it was okay because we were in AA, right? We're here not to drink. But I had all those. I actually chucked them back into I took all those chips. I was like looking at them, and I ended up putting them back into the Spiritual Underground's kitty.
Oh, good.
Put them back in circulation. I thought a little funny about that because they, that they're
sentimental.
And well, not so much that. I have those, and they're over in another bag. But they're like, I'll tell you, they're tainted.
Oh no!
But I don't really believe that.
I don't
There's
think so.
a little for just a minute. I do have, and you were talking earlier about our group doing monthly ones. Over in my bedroom, I have a stack of the 12, the silver one up to my 11 month, and then my other year tokens are stacked up on top of it too. That are my ones that I've gotten since get sober, and those monthly chips mean a lot to me to get.
I know. Well, it's a really long stretch. I mean, like I feel a lot more confident this time around because that first time I did those 90 days,
and you're working the steps, and you're doing all the recipes that make you feel confident.
Exactly. Yeah. But those first 90 days, those were tough.
Yeah,
I mean, it was like I really wanted to drink every single.
White knuckle in it for
There's
sure.
some
90
science
days.
behind that, about that 90-day mark, and it's part of the reason why the nicotine quitting community I was talking about earlier, that's why they just kind of did the 100. There is some real science about unwinding things and your wiring straightening out over a 90-day, 90, 100, that kind of time period. So
Yeah.
there's something to that.
Yeah, this time around, I haven't really had the desire too much. I mean, I think there's been a couple of times where I'm like, it kind of hits me like lightning out of the blue. I'll be like, wow, a glass of wine would be really good with the salmon or something,
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah, I had that for a while. That has left me. That
That's the
there's-
miracle right there.
There's still
It does
some.
leave.
The disease will still tell me a change of head would be a good thing sometimes. It'll still say that. But I don't actually think about it for a while, like the cold beer in the summertime thought, and the real distinct, like you said, the wine with the salmon.
Yeah.
Those are real distinct. That's like, though that's what has faded is the distinct. And now actually when you start talking about it, like earlier when you said something about that vodka in the water, I actually have like a repelling that recoil from from a hot flame kind of thing where my stomach goes, oh yuck, no, that
Yeah.
sounds horrible.
well, yeah, and sometimes I think about the wine and I think about those mornings, and
That's a think through the drink, man. To go, yeah, this is what happens. I get to experience that again if I do this.
yeah, yeah, and that's the thought that has come to me every time I think about it. I'm like, ugh.
Yeah, there's like a
Those mornings were
hotness to
bad.
that morning and that that I don't even
nasty.
like to think about it. So before I circle away from that, because I wanted to, you're someplace around the 100-day mark. Then, do you mind saying about where you're at in your step work?
Getting ready to do 8.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Working on 8, yeah. So saying that, yeah, that's
Yeah, one of the cool things about working with somebody is you get to see the lights come back on, and I've seen you really shine here in the last few months. And I was curious if you thought that, when was that mark for you, where you really felt more comfortable in your skin and just seemed happier, or did you feel that?
Oh no, I definitely feel that. I want to say right around the time before we went to the conference.
Mm-hmm. So we'd just done the 5th step before we went.
Yeah.
I think. Mm-hmm.
Well, no, I was working on my 4th because
okay,
remember,
that's right.
yeah, I was I made the fantastic looking graph.
Right, you did. Very organized person we have here. Absolutely. The prettiest 4-step display I've seen.
And when you were we weren't attached to the hip the whole time, I would take a little time and work on my 4-step, writing
So we
everything
went to the
down.
AA convention together,
Yeah.
and bunked together the whole time. And stuff.
Yeah.
that was a Kentucky State Convention. That was
Lexington.
It was in February.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Just not long
January?
ago.
Wasn't
I
too
don't
It wasn't
ago.
long.
No. I don't know. A couple months
Oh,
ago.
yeah. I was on a teacher training weekend. I remember that because you were going and I was busy.
I think you might be right. It was mid-February.
But I can't. Yeah, it doesn't really
Yeah,
matter.
anyway,
I'm just
yeah.
I timeline out. I'll tell you why I go with that is because one of the things that's important for me is I hear people talking about, that it takes so long to get well, and it seems to some people that it does. And what I want new people to hear, is it doesn't. Once you actually start doing the stuff, here you are, the 100 days feeling pretty damn good about yourself, right?
Right.
And I've got my guys that, there's about a 5 month, I'd say 5 to 6 months, the guy's going to be well on his way. We're going to be through the 12 steps. He may still be doing amends and things, so, I'm a guy who subscribes to the fact that amends maybe, that's not you don't finish the steps. You just don't. You don't even, a trip through, we celebrate that in the fact that we've went through all 12, that we've read the 164 pages together, that we did that, and guys still doing amends. But I got a little carried away on that concept. What I want is, the book says a person will be well and can return to work as a well man inside of 6 months if they're allowed to do so. So I like to beat that a little bit because I hear some people once in a while thinking this thing takes a long time to get well, and it seems like it from the front end. When you're standing at the gate,
Yes.
looking to get into this to make recovery a piece of your life,
It's very,
it looks
very
like
daunting.
Yeah, it is. But to think about how quick 100 days is that
Oh,
you
yeah.
got this transformation in your life, and because that's a drop in the bucket today, 103 months.
I never thought I'd be okay with not drinking. I never thought I'd be okay going to a work conference.
Right.
Like I was worried about a work conference that was back in January.
Yeah.
Because I
Will
know
there be drinking?
Yeah, there was a lot of drinking. But it really wasn't an issue. Like I felt very comfortable being around these people who were ordering drinks, and when they asked me what I wanted to drink, well, Shannon, like I said, she's my best friend. We work together. She was obviously at the conference. She would automatically like run up and get like a glass of water or a Pepsi, and then like make sure my hand was like always occupied.
Well, yeah, and you really prepped yourself for that when we talked for weeks about that, as far as how you would handle different situations. And so by the time that you got there, you were pretty much prepared for what was going to even so there was no surprise.
There was, there was no, I kind of thought about every situation. Mm-hmm. And even since then, like I'm very comfortable going out to eat with friends. I've gone a few times where we've gone to Mexican, they've gotten margaritas, and I don't. I just get water, and they don't even bat an eye.
No big deal.
No big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's everything. I thought the world would be paying more attention to me not drinking too.
Yeah.
That everybody else would be a lot more concerned with me not drinking. They don't really seem to give a shit.
They really don't
care.
No,
they don't care. And then, this last time my friend was even like, oh, yeah, I'm going to go out and after this, you're welcome to come. I'm like, oh, that doesn't even sound like fun.
Right.
Yeah.
Like at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, that is a huge transformation to go from where you talked about to where, it's not even attractive anymore.
Yes.
And that's what recovery is, is to get this stuff coming back. I'm sure there's probably some things that's happened to where, I'm going to guess there's been some things happen where we might say we got some things back. I heard Robin the other day say back problems, that we got this back and got that back. But that's a good thing. A lot of times it's just when we use it that we get these things back and we end up tossing away our
resting
recovery
on our laurels
because
we've got our car back, our job
Well,
back.
But the fact of the matter is those. So I have, and I talk about this. I have a miracle list. My sponsor in the beginning, when things started happening for me, to me, whatever you want to say, because of my recovery, some really cool stuff started happening. I started making a miracle list. He encouraged me to do that. He said, "You will forget about all this stuff." So now I have this really cool list of things that happened to me in recovery, and I wouldn't remember them if I hadn't written them down. If my sponsor hadn't encouraged me to start making a list. And now today he will say things like, okay, put that on the list, and we know what we're talking about. We don't even have to say what it is. Like this podcast was one of them. When this started going on, this was put it on the list. So I get to have these miracles. So that's one thing I was going to say. Has there been anything that you can think of in the last few months that strike you specifically that probably would not have happened had you not?
Had I not quit drinking?
Yeah.
Swimming has come back. This last summer, I got back onto a master's swim team. I mean, obviously, it ended so abruptly. I
would think those two things don't go together with a shit.
No.
Swimming and drinking.
No, it was tough when I was
young.
young.
Like smoking and drinking. Smoking and swimming. You couldn't.
You just can't do it.
Can't keep a cigarette lit.
Yeah. It's tough. I've started swimming with a master's group, which is like 18 and over. And I practice like every morning. Plus I've gotten back in, I've started something new. I don't just swim in the pool. I've started doing open water swimming and open water competitions. And it really, the muscle memory, it really didn't take very long for me to get back into pretty decent shape. Obviously I'm not in the shape I was in college. Like that's pretty impossible, but
I don't say that. I'm probably in the best shape I've ever been in my life.
Are you?
Besides that natural youth, I mean, there was something to that.
Yeah.
But I think you'll find a new power that comes to you from this, but go ahead.
But last July when I wasn't drinking at that point. I was still in that first 90 days. I did my very first open water competition. It was like a 2K up in Indianapolis, and I ended up winning for my age group. Yeah.
Super cool.
I won women
Incredible.
age 40 to 45. So after that, I've really kind of taken off, and
because I hear some stuff about some swimming some phenomenal distances. What, like?
Oh, yeah. I have one coming up. I have...
I mean, to me, it is.
Yeah. This July... Or no. June, I have a 2 mile.
2 miles.
Yeah. And then, this is going to blow you away. In July, I have a 10K.
And 10K is...
6 miles.
6 miles.
Now, where's that done?
6 miles.
Let's see.
It's open water?
What's that?
That's an open water swim?
Yep.
So where is it?
North Carolina
Is it a lake?
Fontana Lake. It's like going to be in the Appalachian Mountains. So it's going to be like this whole weekend excursion with a bunch of other
There's a lot
swimmers
of
in Louisville.
extreme kind of like running. Some people I know. There's a girl who's in my yoga teaching class that is getting ready to do a 100-miler.
Oh my goodness!
A 100-mile run. You know what I mean? And that's on a 6 mile swim is on that kind of ultra type swimming thing, right?
Yes.
I mean,
it's basically a marathon.
Yeah, that's crazy. That is so cool. That is a miracle, you know. And every time I talk to somebody, I try to encourage them to do the same because that miracle list means so much to me today. And I think those would be things you would want to put on that.
Yeah,
you know, because that didn't happen. My friend Frank says he will show pictures of thing and he'll say this is the life that almost didn't happen. And I love that, you know. It'd be whether if it's with his wife or with his, you know, his grandbaby. He will, you know, on our little group, he'll show a picture and he's got his little grandbaby in his arms, you know, and it'll say, "This is the life that almost didn't happen." You know, those are miracles. We get saved, we get risen in that. That is just super cool.
Yeah.
I swam a mile. We did scout troop swim a mile when we was little kids, so when we were young, like in Boy Scouts, in a pool in our circles. That would nearly kill you. And I was, you were in I was like in 15, 16-year-old boy shape, you know. I mean, I doubt, you know, probably that really is like, that's that endurance that can't be measured when you got that kind of energy as a kid.
I know.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And man, you get out there, you couldn't walk. You would be fumbling around the next couple of days, being sore from it. Swimming miles. Do you swim in where do you do open water swimming here?
It's pretty gross.
I don't think it is.
We do a 5K on Sundays in the Ohio.
Do you? I don't think there's anything. I mean, I don't. The river's a lot different than it used to be. Things are a lot cleaner than what it used to be.
Well, I mean, there's
I don't have any problem
sometimes
getting in
if
the
it
river. I've been in
rains way too much.
You can get some
lot of
debris.
Yeah, debris, and then the bacteria level will get high.
Really, y'all measure it?
Yeah. So if it's too high,
Interesting.
then we cancel.
Yeah.
But really in the summertime when it's, you know,
normal,
it's not that bad.
Yeah, I don't think anything. I don't. You know, there was a time when was concerned, and we all joked around here about being in the river, but I don't think it's that. You know, it's nothing what it used to be. We've come a long ways on cleaning things up. In the past, I don't know, 20 years or something.
Absolutely.
So where do you go? Where do you put in at? Where do you start at?
The U of L boat docks. You know where that is? Where the rowing.
Yeah.
And then we swim
so I've
around.
been on the stand-up paddle boards in the river. And that's where they take off
There's a new company over there that does the stand-up paddle boards.
Is it Endless Summer?
Yes.
Yeah, that's my friend. That's actually the director of the yoga teacher training.
Oh, fantastic!
Yeah. She's the one that I've done the stand-up paddleboarding with.
Okay, you should come out and
Mimi.
Be our pilot sometime, because we're always looking for kayakers or SUPers to kind of just
be around,
you know, and sight for us, if there's boats coming,
or if somebody was going to get in trouble, or
exactly, or like there's a big log that we can't see or something like that. We're always looking for people to come out there and kind of guide us.
So you put in, because there's that island right there.
Yes.
So you're putting in right there.
So
in
we
that
put
channel.
in there. We go upstream the channel to the top of Towhead Island, and then we go around the island, and then we swim all the way down to Joe's Crab Shack, and then we turn around from Joe's Crab Shack and then go back up to the boat docks and get out, and that ends up being exactly a 5K.
Wow.
So 3 miles.
It's
incredible.
Phenomenal to me, man. It really is. That is so cool.
It's so much fun. I really can't wait for us to be able to get back in the water again and start doing that.
Yeah, I guess, that's somewhat seasonal, huh?
Yeah.
You're not swimming in the cold weather.
No, I don't enjoy
training,
it.
Wetsuits on.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Training indoors.
Absolutely. I still get into the Mary T pool here every morning. I get up at 4:30 in the morning, go swim at 5:30, and then I'm done at 6:30 and back to work, or, you know.
Super cool.
So that's absolutely, there's no way on earth. I mean, when I was drinking, it was I was barely getting out of bed at 8:30 and then like turning on my computer and trying to work.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what they say, right? We build a life around our recovery, so it's just easier not to use, right?
Yeah. Exactly. I mean,
And back to those miracles, I'm thinking of something specific, but did you have anything else on your list?
my daughter.
I had a feeling. I don't know anything.
Yeah.
Family things come in.
Definitely a better relationship with my daughter.
Like 150% better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like she
Like
respects me as an actual like adult parent again.
you'll have a really good relationship today.
Yes.
Families reassembled. It says it in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it was pretty bad there for
For a minute.
a minute.
Yeah,
Minute and a half.
The fact that they that we're able to get some forgiveness in that, and that actually sometimes I think things sometimes can actually end up being stronger than they ever were. I don't. You sound like you'd lived this life of using at some level for her entire life, right? And that's the same thing with me and my children. And I did a lot of damage, and to have that back again today, and they know that their dad is something different than what that, it's been a real transformation that you end up being, like I said in the beginning when I said the prayer, I said, they gave me my life back. I don't really feel that. I feel better than getting my life back. I feel like I got a life today.
Yes.
That I actually, that never was present. So when my family can look at me today and be proud like your daughter is of you, that not only have you turned, not only are you restored, you've done that from turning something around from a really dark spot, that's.
Yeah. And I feel like she can tell me a lot. Obviously she's seen my ugly, disgusting side.
Yeah.
So she can kind of tell me things freely, even though they might be kind of ugly and disgusting.
Yeah, I think it opens. That's another thing. It opens up a level of honesty. It probably would never been there. Let's say if y'all if this had never happened.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I
If
think
you'd
she
had
probably
to
feels like I
leave it
can
to
kind
Beaver
of
lifestyle. Then you kind of get to a depth of honesty.
Yeah.
And she can confide in you, and she comes to you often, doesn't she?
Yes, she does. More so than even her
she
dad, which I mean, she saw her dad go through some times, but I mean, my ugly times were more recent. He's
Well, and I do get the ugly times, but don't you also think that it's your ability to share with her honestly about how you're turning things around and how
Yes.
you're feeling better and comparing today to when you were using? I think that just offers a whole lot of safety for kids to come to us and talk about what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I'm not going to judge, and I don't. I don't feel like I have the room to judge, and I can tell her my opinion and tell her what direction she should go in, because and really at this point it's up to her to either listen or not listen.
Let her through it.
It's tough, but you really have to realize that your kids are going to have their own path.
Yep. Oh, I said this the other day when we were talking, and there's some things have come to light lately. But it seems that maybe we have to do this. That we have to travel this hard path to get out the other side. That watch this thing called that's all about Joseph Campbell's theories. I don't know if you've heard of him, but the hero's journey.
Yeah.
And that we have to. We're born pure and perfect. Mm-hmm. We go down paths. We have struggles. We rise through them. We hopefully we come through that even stronger, and then we're able to share that experience with other people. And I think that in that cycle can continue. That we're going to. I think it's a Buddhist thing that says where we have life is suffering, we're going to have some, and part of the character building in that life is just walking through this stuff and hopefully winning on the back end of it.
Yeah.
Problem is not everybody makes it.
Yes. Yeah.
Any other miracles you can think of? How about your parents and do you see them?
No, my dad actually passed away in 2006.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. No, my mom, after a couple of years after he passed, she ended up moving away from Alaska and moved down to Hawaii.
Moved down to Hawaii. Well, doggone.
I don't make it back to Alaska too often, but
Where was she originally from?
Illinois.
Illinois.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. I actually have family up in the Chicago suburb area.
Yeah.
So I have not gone back up there since I have gotten sober. So that'll be interesting. I used to go up there for Thanksgiving. I definitely owe them some amends. So
that'll be right on time.
Yeah, I've been a pretty sloppy drunk at some Thanksgivings and some family gatherings, and
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Most time I just remember being really, really sleepy.
Is that what it was?
I had to take a lot of naps at other people's houses.
I was the hostess for years, so it was some burnt dinners and.
Oh boy, yeah. No, I took a nap on a sidewalk outside.
Yeah.
I was the embarrassing person.
Well, super cool. Is there anything usually towards it? It feels like we're wrapping up, and we are, which will blow your mind when I tell you that it's been an hour and 40 minutes.
Really?
Yeah.
I was so worried. I was like, it's going to be like 30 minutes. I'm going to be done.
That's about the going rate, and that's another thing. What a blessing, I think, and what's good about the way we're doing it here is that we have the time to talk about it and get some stories in, because when you're actually behind the podium, you got to truncate that story pretty well, and you only get to
40 minutes or whatever.
Yeah, 40 minutes or so, and we're twice that easy, and
wow.
have a chance. Of course, we're all three chiming in some, so that changes things. But I thought I am tickled pink to have heard your story today. It's I loved it, and thank you for sharing it with us. Is there any final? What I like to do, I take this from another podcasting guy, and we do a concluder. If you choose to, if there's any final closing thoughts you want to say, or
gosh, I'm so thankful for my first husband to kind of just to show me the way, and it's taken me to actually do the steps, keep showing up, getting a sponsor, just really all the things that they tell you to do. That's how you get sober.
Yeah.
It's funny how that works.
Yeah.
We want to make it more complicated, but it's not.
They read it in every meeting almost, and we don't, and I don't hear it, and they read it, and the damn chapter is called How It Works, and the steps are in there.
That's how it goes. Yeah.
But no, I joke around
unique.
those, in the first paragraph it says some words that are really strong words, and I discount them. It says absolutely. We got to let go. Absolutely, thoroughly follow this path.
Yeah.
Absolutely and completely give yourself to this program, but those that absolutely thoroughly, they don't really mean that. They don't really mean that. Yes, they do, because that is the recipe to getting well.
It is.
Robin, you got any final thoughts, concluders?
No, I'm good. I'm just really proud of you, and it's been so good for my recovery. We're on this path together, and I can't wait for you to get some sponsees, and it's just going to be a really fun road to travel together.
I'm actually looking forward to my future.
Yeah, absolutely.
The juice is in sponsoring other people.
Is
and
it?
Watching
It
those
is.
lights come on. Yeah, it is. This is 4 years sober. And again, I'll preface this with, this is not me. This is the program. I have a great sponsee doing a fifth step tonight. So one of my sponsee.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's 4 deep in that amount of time, and it really is. It gives me chills to think that that we get. That's what this thing's wrapped up about is getting well, and then teaching other people how you did it. Take them by the hand and let them follow you down this path, and watching magic happen in them, and encourage them to start their own miracle lists.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is really cool. Well, thank you both for sitting in. It's been a really cool experience to hear it. I just, I get to participate in my recovery in a way that very few people get to do. Higher power just keeps on handing me ways to continue to do this thing, and to delve deeper into my own recovery by sharing it with others. And we crossed over 1,500 listens the other day, plays on the podcast. So that's 1,500. Yeah, that's really cool. I'm excited about that. I'm really, we've been going since the beginning of the year. I started this thing in January, so
Oh, wow.
feel real good about that. what's that, somewhere around 500 listens a month or something. We're not even through March yet. Great guests. So I get to do this thing. I get to do lots of things in recovery that wouldn't be possible had I stayed on that other path. That other path was going to land me in prison or dead, and I get to do this instead. Go to Spirit. Just want to remind everybody, go to spiritualunderground.org for pictures and show notes and a contact me page if you want to be on the podcast, or if you're having any trouble with maybe these substances and spiritual sickness, as we say here, feel free to email me from there, and I will do what I can to help you on that account. 12-Step Spiritual Recovery, the book by Christopher Cohn, is available on Amazon. We've started meetings. We had a second meeting this past Thursday. That is picking up speed so we can get these 12 steps out to the rest of the world or anybody else who wants them. Way of living, a design for living that works, as Bill Wilson said. And the music wrapped around the podcast lately is by Darren Frank. I'll remind you that. You'll hear a part of a song to lead in, and then if you stay tuned for the end, you will hear a full song and maybe even some details where Darren shares about his writing of that song. So stay tuned, listen to the whole thing if you're inclined to do so. Thank you all for listening. And once again, we will sign off like we always do. Peace out.
I had done a lot of Reiki on people and stuff, so I went back to my room that night and I wrote the music to this song. And then I came back when I got home and wrote the lyrics, but this is called Just Like Me. So let me know when you're ready to go.
I'm ready.
Okay. How about take two? In a world that likes to separate best from the worst, you've been fighting most of your life to end up first. Day after day you play their game, hope you pick the right side. Give all you got, but you never win. You just sacrifice. You feel so cut off. Nobody understands. Don't cry, salvation's close at hand. If you've ever been broken, shattered piece by piece, you've been ripped apart on the inside, and the pain won't cease. If you've ever felt lonely, lost in this human race, with all your heart you wanna be part of, still you feel out of place. If you want to find a way out, but you just can't see, take my hand and walk where I'm going, 'cause you're just like me. You walk alone out in the cold, dreaming of your fire. Gotten used to feeling low, forgot what it's like to go higher. Every time you open nobody understands. Don't cry, salvation's close at hand. If you've ever been broken, shattered piece by piece, you've been ripped apart on the inside, and the pain won't cease. If you've ever felt lonely, lost in this human race, with all your heart you want to be part of, still you feel out of place. If you want to find a way out, but you just can't see, take my hand and walk where I'm going, child, 'cause you're just like me. You're just like me. Yeah, you're just like me. You're just like me. That's my stadium rock song.
I think it's just really, really neat, man.
It's all recovery words, man, every bit of it. That's my book.
I get it. Yeah, you know, it's we were talking a little about that, and you said that, you know, like you say, you said to write, you know, and we will like go places in our head.
Yeah.
What we think that means. The story we tell ourselves.
Right.
You know, initially the story you told yourself was that meant you're supposed to be a book.
Yeah.
And later on you found out, no, it's actually something else.
And, you know, the words, they just seem to come. The music is what I write. I mean, I think that's what makes my songs good, because, I mean, I could be like a drop-dead perfect poet, but not being able to, I mean, that people remember the melody more than they do the lyrics. I mean, they're both important, but I write with this guy, Jerry, from Unity. I wrote a song with him, and he writes the same song over and over and over and over and over. It's the same chords, same style. He doesn't rhyme, and I'm totally different. But we wrote one together, and he come up with all these words, and they were great phrases, but they didn't rhyme. And I'm like, well, I'm going to write the music, and I'm going to rhyme them. And it turned out to be a really good song. So I can write with anybody that can write words, because my main thing is the music. And then Jesse, mine is like the mannequin, and then he puts on the jewelry, you know, and dresses it up and stuff. And what he does, I can't do what he does, but he can do what I do.
Yeah. Those produced versions, you know, I put those 5 or 6 or whatever they were in my phone, and I made them because I noticed that some of the music you sent me had actually metadata in it, and it came into my computer with album time kind of labels on it and stuff, and it organized itself in my iTunes.
Oh, did it?
But those songs that came from Jesse don't have any of that metadata attached to them, so they're just these untitled songs. Or
yeah.
They got titles, but they don't have any album or any kind of artist or anything like that over
Right.
them. They've got the title of the song on them, and that's it. And so I put them in a playlist so that'll keep them together. So like I'm out and I'm just like I wear these all the time. Bluetooth headphones. And like I'm on the tractor at work or out here cutting the grass, or I'm in here, or sometimes because these will double up for ear protection if I'm running equipment and stuff. And I remember when a song come on and I'm like, what is that? Yeah, it took me a minute, and I'm listening to it, you know, but my mind's not really thinking that because I'm doing other stuff, right? But there's a piece of my mind, what is that? And I was like, oh, that's one of them songs from Darren. And it was the first time that like one rolled in just organically into my shuffle. And yeah, man, I mean, that stuff hangs with everything else that's in there. It's
Cool.
what I'm listening to. It's
Cool.
It's kind of like, because my brain wants to discount it, right? Because it's a friend of mine.
Right.
But my heart, when he heard it, it's like, yeah, that's just same stuff, man.
Cool. Yeah, Jesse helped me a lot to believe in myself because I didn't believe in it. But he was telling me from the get-go they were good, and then I started to believe it. When I heard it, when I heard the first one finished, my grandson was about a little over 2 at the time. He could talk, so I guess between 2 and 3, and he would not let us play another song. Anytime we was in the car, we had to play it over and over. My wife was sick of it, but that was Pappy's song. He didn't want to hear anything. That one and what was that show about the gangsters a couple of years ago? It was a motorcycle gang, and they sold drugs and stuff. It was real popular.
Sons of Anarchy.
Sons of Anarchy. And that song, the beginning, he would listen to that song and my song. He wouldn't listen to anything else over and over and over. Because another song would start playing that I wrote, and he was like, no.
Wrong song.
Yeah, wrong song. So I guess he was about 2,
How old is he now?
5. Be 6 in October.